Al Stafford can talk about all these things. You said we got him, Clark? Awesome, because he's the PA voice of the Eskimos too, but also the Edmonton Bubble. And there he is, Al. Al, looks like you're at work today, my friend. How are you? Or are you at home?
Well, I hate to burst the bubble, actually, but I'm not in the bubble. I get to come and go pretty much as I please, and I'm only working 2 games today. Former public address announcer Mark Lewis is actually doing a little substitution work, so he's working the early game today, and then I'm doing the late afternoon and the evening game. So, and just another correction: I actually retired from the CFL.
Oh, well, I've been around for a while in the CFL.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, so did I. So did I, Al.
Yeah.
Anyways.
2018 was my last season in the Canadian Football League. So
that makes 2 of us. Guess that's why I didn't see you around the booth in 2019. I wasn't there either. Look, Al, the most obvious question is, what's it like announcing Oilers games in an empty Rogers Place? What is it like? Tell me.
It was very strange at first because, as you know, when you go to a live sporting event, there's nothing like the energy in the building that comes from a live crowd. And not having that was a little weird off the top, just looking around. And even, as you go up to the booth and you're doing your game prep, and as they let the crowd into the building, at that point you can start to feel the buzz and the electricity and stuff like that. And there's none of that. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like an exhibition game almost at that point where hardly anybody's there. But they have tried to do a number of things in order to enhance the experience for the players and what have you, and they're pumping crowd noise in and that sort of thing. So it's starting to feel a little bit more normal now. I guess the oddest thing for me is probably trying to voice home and visitors' goals with equal amounts of enthusiasm.
Well, right. So it's been a major change then. I mean, last night I'm watching the national anthem. You were there. You did the Flames-Jets game, right? They had True North in the national anthem, and they're playing the Jets music. But I think they also played the Flames train when they scored. So your job isn't just the same. Obviously, you're doing a lot of high stepping, it would seem, there from what you would normally do.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and in a lot of ways, it's more stripped down. I mean, the idea here from the National Hockey League is to make this a made-for-TV event, because clearly, without people in the building, that's all they really can do at this point. And I think they've done a real good job with it. Visually, I think they've tried to make it more interesting. They've tried to make the game experience as close to authentic as they possibly can under the circumstances. And I think they've done a real good job with it from that standpoint. For me, there's actually a lot less work to do because there are no sponsorship announcements. All I'm announcing is goals, assists, penalties, last minute of play. I'm doing the occasional anthem introduction. As you pointed out, the teams from around the Western Conference provided a number of video and audio files to our game presentation staff so that they can kind of offer local enhancements, if you will, as a part of the game too, in terms of any extra audio that they do around goals or that kind of thing, anthem singers that they've used from various different places and stuff, to try to make it feel more like a home game for those teams that are designated as the home team for that game.
I got to say, I've been saying on the show for a few weeks, Al, that I don't understand who to follow for news anymore. Or how to conduct myself other than just follow the guidelines that we've got from our own government. For instance, you have in and out privileges, and we had Gene Principe on last week. He's got in and out privileges, and yet Jake Muzzin doesn't. He leaves on a stretcher and goes to the hospital in Toronto. He's out of the hospital this morning, but now he's got a quarantine. So it seems a little confusing to me. It's obviously very laid out for you, but it's close. It's clear to me the NHL isn't fooling around with who gets in and who doesn't.
No, there's no question about that. They're very stringent in terms of their guidelines and what have you. I think they're expecting us to govern ourselves accordingly and, follow all of the necessary rules and stuff like that we would in our own lives anyway, in order to protect ourselves and to protect our families and that sort of thing. So from that standpoint, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm not leaving the game and then going to the bar and having a couple of beers with my buddies afterwards or that kind of thing. At the end of the day, I'm going home and, I get up in the morning and I putter around the house or whatever until it's time to go to the rink. And then I'm in the rink all day. There's a guideline that everybody has to wear masks inside Rogers Place at all times. And so, we're all doing that. I'm getting tested daily from the health staff there on site as well, too. So they're really keeping a close eye to make sure that bubble remains intact as best they can. And you do have to understand, too, I'm working on level 8 up in Rogers Place, and that level has been designated just for game ops and for NHL personnel. They've actually moved the media down to level 7, so we're not even mixing with the media. So I've got very little access to the players or the officials or that kind of thing. And even if I do happen to cross paths with them in the testing area or something like that, we're all masked up and there's hand sanitizer everywhere.
Well, to me, fascinating, because the way we're used to operating out, I would always come down to your booth at Commonwealth and we'd visit for a while. I love that. But now you probably would never see a Chris Cuthbert in this scenario, right?
That's right. I haven't seen Chris in the building. I haven't seen Louis DeBrusk. Well, I saw Louis DeBrusk in the elevator once coming out one night. And, of course, we were both masked up and, we said hello and that kind of thing. And that's the other weird thing, actually, is I've given a whole new thought to facial recognition, and I don't know if other people have experienced this as well, but I'm encountering staff that I normally encounter in Rogers Place on a game day, and I have to take a second look to make sure that that's the person I think it is, because all you can see is their eyes. You can't see the rest of the face.
Right. Well, in some cases, that would be a good thing. But hey, I got to ask you about Mark Lewis. As a guy that grew up as an Oilers fan, Golden Knights are my number 1 team now, but Oilers are number 2. The Oilers go. We discussed this at length in hour 1. He's a god in Edmonton, is he not? Mark Lewis?
He's sure. Oh, yeah. No, there's no question. Mark is revered in this market, and for good reason. I mean, he did that job for well over 30 years. He called all 5 Stanley Cups that the Oilers won, going back to the 1980s and into 1990 as well. And so generations of fans have grown up with an attachment to that voice. There's no question. And I've been watching on social media the past few days, too. And there are a lot of people delighted to hear his voice in the building again.
Yeah, I am too. Hey, I know you said you got 1 game today. Is that it? Is it the Oilers game?
No, I'm doing 2 today. I'm doing the 4:30 game and the 8:30 game. Yeah, the Oilers are playing today, right?
Yeah,
it's Wednesday, right?
What day is it? Yeah,
Don't start to run together. I've done 8 in the last 3 days.
That's the Al I know and miss. That's funny. Well, lastly, then, on the Eskimos name change, if you don't mind, if you're not working with the team anymore, then I guess you can talk about it, because there's a gag order on the club with personnel talking about it. Where do you stand?
As an outsider, and I was never really attached to what the Eskimos were doing in terms of investigation. I was a game day employee, so I didn't have a lot of access to those internal discussions and stuff. And I know there have been questions about how vigorous the Eskimos were in terms of who they reached out to before they ultimately made the decision before that they weren't going to change the name, and now that they actually, in fact, have made the decision that they are going to change the name. From my standpoint, it seems to me that there's a significant segment of the population that was offended by the use of the term Eskimos. And from that standpoint, what we've seen in Washington and what have you, I think it was probably time to seriously address it and maybe move forward with something that was less hurtful to that segment of the Indigenous population in Canada. But the other thing that I find intriguing, there aren't a lot of people talking about this, or maybe I'm just not listening to the right shows, but, from this standpoint, yes, you do want to make sure that your name sits well in the community. But if you do go ahead and make the change, isn't that a glorious opportunity for merchandising dollars?
Well, that's what they're saying, yeah, that all the Eskimo stuff sold out for sure. But I also know the price tag that's coming with changing. It's mitigating. Hey, producer Clark wants to know, as a guy who's worked in sports a long time, is there one name that you enjoyed saying more than others that just comes to mind?
Uh, Gosh,
I should have prepped you
I've
for
never
this.
really
I
given
know.
that a lot of thought before. I mean, there's some fun ones. I spend more time actually worrying about the ones that I hope don't come up too often in a game. And there was more of that in the CFL, I think, than there has been in the National Hockey League. But some of those European names get to be a little tricky after a while. So, but I'm not sure I could pin it down to just one that I really love to say.
I know. Well, the chats, you'd come into my booth and you'd go, "What about this name?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, you're never going to see him." And you're like, "Okay, good." And I think most times you wouldn't. Well, Mike Abu Meshwork would be one. He's been sitting here enjoying it. No, driving PA announcer is crazy across the CFL for years.
No letter, a consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant,
Strict
vowel.
grammatical rules.
Sound it out, buddy.
All right, Al, listen, we're watching very closely. Thanks for the visit, man. It has been years overdue. I appreciate the visit, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Rod, and Mike. Hello to you as well, too, and hello to all of your viewers and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this. Let's do it again sometime.
Yep, would love to. Thanks, Al. Al Stafford,
You bet.
PA announcer in Edmonton, formerly of the Eskimos. I thought he still was, but has been now for some time with the Edmonton Oilers.
You're watching Rod Peterson On Demand. For more of The Rod Peterson Show, visit rodpeterson.com or follow Rod Peterson on social media.